The unexpected declaration. Commander Elena Reyes straightened her navy blue uniform as she watched the massive alien vessel slip into Earth orbit. The Galactic Consortium's flagship resembled an enormous pearl, its iridescent surface reflecting Earth's oceans and clouds. After decades of listening to the stars, humanity had finally been noticed and invited to the interstellar community's table. "Remember," said Admiral Jackson, his weathered face tight with tension, "we need allies, not enemies. 300 species in this consortium, and we're the new kids on the block." Elena nodded. As Earth's military attaché to the diplomatic team, her job was to assess threats and capabilities, not to create them. But something about the consortium's hurried invitation felt off. They'd been watching Earth for decades, yet only approached after humans developed rudimentary FTL travel. The meeting chamber aboard the consortium vessel glittered with crystalline structures and flowing water features. Representatives from 24 species arranged themselves according to some hierarchy Elena couldn't discern. Some floated in transparent bubbles, others crawled on multiple limbs, while a few appeared almost human. If you ignored the subtle differences in proportion and coloration. High Ambassador Kforal, a tall being with 4 arms and blue-gray skin textured like fine sandpaper, stepped forward. "Representatives of Earth, we welcome you to the Galactic Consortium. We have observed your species with great interest." The meeting began with formal introductions and declarations of peaceful intent. Elena remained silent, observing the subtle reactions of the alien delegates. Many seemed to flinch whenever humans moved suddenly. Others kept what she assumed were sensory organs trained on the Earth delegation at all times. During the refreshment break, Elena accepted a glass of clear liquid from a hovering tray. She sipped it cautiously, finding it tasted like cucumber and mint, when she noticed Ambassador Kforal staring at her with all 4 of his eyes widened. "Is something wrong, Ambassador?" she asked. "You consumed that without testing." Kforal's translator conveyed both words and emotional undertones of shock. Elena glanced at her glass. "Our analysis team cleared all refreshments as compatible with human physiology. But it contains compounds that would cause seizures in 17-member species," Kforal said. "And you drink it, casually." The delegation from Earth exchanged glances. Dr. Mira Chen, their xenobiologist, stepped forward. "Humans have remarkably adaptable digestive and detoxification systems. It's one of our evolutionary advantages." This sparked a flurry of discussion among the alien representatives. A small delegation of arthropod-like beings scuttled away, clicking rapidly to each other. Elena's translation implant couldn't keep up with their dialect, but their body language screamed alarm. The meeting resumed, but the tone had shifted. Questions about Earth's defensive capabilities, resource consumption patterns, and expansion plans dominated the discussion. Every honest answer seemed to increase the tension in the room. When Admiral Jackson mentioned Earth's 27 active colonies throughout the solar system and 3 experimental settlements in nearby star systems, a ripple of what Elena could only interpret as fear passed through the chamber. "Such rapid expansion is unusual," said Kforal, his lower arms making gestures Elena's cultural database couldn't interpret. "Most species require centuries to establish extraplanetary settlements." "We adapt quickly," said Dr. Chen with a smile that wasn't returned. 3 days later, the Earth delegation was summoned back to the consortium vessel. This time, the meeting chamber had been reconfigured. The flowing water features were gone, and the lighting was harsh and direct. Hundreds of alien representatives now attended virtually, their projections forming a semicircle around the humans. "The full Consortium Council has reached a decision regarding Earth's petition for membership," announced Kforal, his voice flatter than before. Elena felt her muscles tense. The lack of preliminaries and refreshments spoke volumes about the formality of this meeting. "Earth's application for membership is denied," Kforal continued. "Furthermore, the consortium has classified humanity as a Class 1 extinction-level threat to galactic stability." Admiral Jackson stepped forward. "On what grounds?" We show nothing but peaceful. Your biological adaptability allows you to survive conditions lethal to most sentient species, interrupted a floating tentacled being. Your cognitive architecture makes you unpredictably innovative. Your social structures emphasize individual action over collective stability. And your history, added a crystalline entity that pulsed with internal light, demonstrates a disturbing pattern of conflict, rapid technological adaptation during warfare, and expansion following resource depletion. Hectoral raised all four hands for silence. The consortium hereby demands Earth's immediate surrender and disarmament. All colonial outposts must be abandoned. Human expansion beyond your home planet will cease. A consortium oversight committee will monitor compliance. The chamber fell silent. Alina felt the blood drain from her face as she processed the implications. This wasn't a negotiation. It was an ultimatum. Admiral Jackson cleared his throat. And if we decline these terms, then the consortium will have no choice but to declare a containment action against Earth, said Thorl. What you would call war. To everyone's surprise, Dr. Chen laughed. A genuine sound of amusement that echoed through the chamber. The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. I'm sorry, she said, not looking sorry at all, but you're declaring war on humanity because we adapt too well. Because we're too resilient. Do you understand what happens when you back humans into a corner? Your threats are noted, said Sorrel coldly. It's not a threat, said Alina, speaking for the first time. It's a historical observation. Humans unite against external pressure. We innovate fastest when challenged. By declaring us enemies, you're creating exactly the conditions that produce the behavior you fear. The Earth delegation was dismissed. As they boarded their shuttle to return home, Admiral Jackson looked grim. Well, that's that. Humanity's first interstellar war is about to begin, against impossible odds. Elena stared out at the massive alien fleet gathering beyond Earth's orbit. They may have better ships and weapons, but they've made a fundamental error. What's that? Asked Dr. Chen. They've shown us their hand first, said Elena. And if there's one thing humans excel at, it's changing the rules when the game doesn't favor us. Back on Earth, the United Defense Council convened an emergency session. The room buzzed with tense energy as military leaders, scientists, and government officials processed the consortium's declaration. They've given us 14 Earth days to surrender, said Admiral Jackson to the assembled council. Their fleet includes approximately 2,000 warships of various classes, using technologies at least a century beyond our most advanced systems. The projections looked grim. Earth had a defense fleet of barely 100 military vessels, plus civilian ships that could be quickly retrofitted. Their weapons were designed to fight other humans, not alien armadas. If we fight conventionally, we lose, concluded General Torres, the head of Earth's combined military forces. If we surrender, we become prisoners on our own planet. Then we don't fight conventionally, said Alina, stepping forward with a datapad. And we definitely don't surrender. Over the next week, humanity's response took shape, not as a unified military strategy, but as thousands of independent initiatives. Mining ships were fitted with improvised weapons. University labs worked around the clock analyzing the limited data on consortium technology. Civilian volunteers trained for emergency response. Most puzzling to the consortium observers must have been Earth's apparent lack of panic. Sports events continued. People went to restaurants. Children attended school. The planet carried on as if an overwhelming alien force wasn't poised to attack. On the consortium command ship, High Commander Vrek reviewed the intelligence reports with growing confusion. They're not mobilizing their military as expected, he said to Coral. Scans show minimal fleet movements, no mass evacuations. Either they've accepted defeat or they're planning something we don't understand, finished Coral. Their psychological profiles suggested they would respond with either immediate aggression or capitulation. This calm is concerning. In fact, Earth was far from calm beneath its surface appearance. In underground facilities, abandoned mines, and secret orbital stations, humanity was preparing, not for a traditional war, but for something the consortium would never expect. On the 13th day, as the consortium fleet began final attack preparations, they received a message from Earth. It wasn't a surrender. It was an invitation to a diplomatic dinner to discuss mutually beneficial alternatives to unnecessary conflict. Attached was a weather advisory warning consortium ships about dangerous solar flare activity near Jupiter. "They're mocking us," said a consortium tactical officer. "No," said Sorrel, his four eyes narrowing. "They're playing a different game entirely." He ordered a preliminary strike against Earth's Mars colony. It was time to see what humanity was really planning. Humanity unleashed. The consortium attack fleet moved toward Mars with mathematical precision. 50 warships in perfect formation, each carrying enough firepower to level a city. Their tactical computers calculated a 99.8% chance of overwhelming the minimal defenses of the Mars colony within hours. What the computers couldn't calculate was human unpredictability. As the fleet entered Mars orbit, they detected no defensive measures, no attempt at evacuation. The colony appeared to be continuing normal operations, its dome habitats glowing softly against the red landscape. "Preliminary scans complete," reported the consortium fleet commander to High Commander Freck. "Minimal resistance expected. Commencing bombardment in 3 minutes." That's when the lights across the entire Mars colony went dark. And that's when the first mine detonated. The leading consortium vessel suddenly lurched as a massive explosion erupted from what their sensors had registered as an abandoned mining site. The blast wasn't powerful enough to destroy the advanced warship, but it disrupted its defensive shields momentarily. In that moment, 5 seemingly ordinary transport vessels launched from concealed hangars across the colony. They weren't military ships, just retrofitted cargo haulers. But they carried something the consortium wasn't expecting: boarding teams. "This is madness," said Chlorel as he watched the feed from the command ship. "Their vessels cannot penetrate our hulls. What are they attempting?" Elena had asked herself the same question during planning. How do you fight an enemy with superior technology and overwhelming numbers? The answer had come from an unlikely source: Earth's pirate history. You don't try to sink their ships. You capture them. The transport vessels didn't try to breach the consortium hulls. Instead, they attached themselves to external maintenance ports, standard features on all consortium vessels, designed for repair drones. The ports weren't designed to keep determined humans out. Within minutes, boarding teams in hastily adapted pressure suits were inside 5 consortium vessels. They carried simple weapons, mostly mining tools and improvised explosives. But they also carried something far more dangerous: intimate knowledge of how complex systems fail. "Sir, we're receiving distress signals from the Vigilant, the Starhammer, and 3 other vessels," reported a communications officer. They report human infiltration. The consortium's perfect formation began to break as ships lost power, weapon systems went offline, or life support systems suddenly required emergency attention. It wasn't a battle. It was chaos. Meanwhile, across the solar system, humanity launched its real counterattack. Hundreds of small, autonomous drones, barely more than engines attached to communication jammers, flooded out from hidden bases on Jupiter's moons. They weren't weapons. They were distractions, overwhelming consortium detection systems with false signals. From Earth, a volley of missiles launched toward the moon, not aimed at the consortium fleet, but at the moon itself. The explosions kicked up massive dust clouds that further confused consortium sensors. "They're not fighting us," realized Freck as reports of confusion poured in from across the system. "They're creating disorder, breaking our ability to coordinate." On a captured consortium vessel, Lieutenant Maya Wong led her team through alien corridors, disabling systems according to the hasty manuals put together by Earth's xenotechnicians. "Remember," she told her team, "we don't need to understand how everything works. We just need to make it stop working." The human approach was anathema to the consortium's philosophy. Their warfare was precise, calculated, and orderly. Humans were introducing randomness, asymmetry, and improvisation. For a collective that valued predictability above all else, it was their worst nightmare. Back on the consortium command ship, Thorl received increasingly alarming reports. The attack on Mars had stalled completely. 5 ships were under human control. Earth's defense fleet, rather than engaging in direct confrontation, was conducting hit-and-run attacks against supply vessels. Civilian mining ships were dragging asteroids into unusual orbits, creating navigation hazards. "Impossible," muttered Vrek as he reviewed the situation. "Their tactics make no strategic sense." "That's because you're looking for strategy," said Xorl, a new understanding dawning. "But they're not following a strategic doctrine. Each human group is acting independently, adapting to local conditions." The conflict expanded across the solar system. The consortium still held overwhelming force advantage, but found it increasingly difficult to apply that advantage effectively. Humans didn't concentrate their forces where expected. They didn't defend what seemed strategically valuable. They abandoned positions only to circle back when consortium forces moved on. After 3 days of frustrating engagements, the consortium launched what was meant to be a decisive strike against Earth's lunar bases, the logical staging point for Earth's defense. They committed a third of their fleet to the assault. They found the bases apparently abandoned, and then watched in disbelief as humans detonated massive explosive charges from within the moon's subsurface caverns. The resulting seismic activity and debris cloud didn't destroy any consortium ships, but it effectively neutralized their advanced targeting systems. While the consortium fleet was occupied with the lunar diversion, Earth launched its masterstroke, not against the consortium military, but against its command and communication. Elena led this mission personally. A small stealth vessel, developed in secret using insights gleaned from studying consortium technology, approached the consortium's massive command ship. Their goal wasn't to destroy it, but to access its central communication array. "We don't need to defeat their entire military," Elena had explained during planning. "We just need to demonstrate that the cost of fighting us is too high." With 6 specialists and a quantum computer loaded with the most sophisticated hacking algorithms Earth could develop, Elena's team breached the command ship's communication center. They didn't try to destroy it. Instead, they broadcast. Every consortium ship received the same transmission: detailed footage of human resilience. Children playing in parks despite orbital battles overhead. Scientists working around the clock to understand alien technology. Ordinary civilians adapting mining equipment into defensive tools. And with it, a message: "We don't want your war, but we will never surrender our future. The longer you fight us, the more we learn from you." In the Consortium Council's emergency session, the footage played on repeat as members argued furiously. "We cannot defeat them conventionally," said Thorl. "Their approach to warfare defies our doctrines. The more we engage, the more they adapt. Our every tactic becomes their learning opportunity." "Then we must escalate to planet-wide destruction," argued a hardline faction. "Complete sterilization, which would prove them entirely correct about us," countered Thorl. "And unite the survivors, and there would be survivors, in an eternal vendetta against the consortium." The debate raged for hours while the conflict continued across the solar system. Consortium vessels were being captured or disabled at an increasing rate as humans learned and adapted their tactics. Their perfect formations had dissolved into defensive clusters trying to protect each other from unpredictable human assaults. Finally, 27 days after declaring war on humanity, the consortium requested a ceasefire. Elena sat across from Thorl in the same chamber where, a month earlier, humans had been declared an extinction-level threat. The difference in atmosphere was palpable. "You could not have defeated our full military might," Thorl stated, all 4 arms in a position that Elena's cultural database now recognized as conciliatory. "Probably not," Elena agreed. "But we could have made victory so costly that it became meaningless." The Council has reassessed humanity's classification, said Thorl. You remain dangerous, but we now understand that your adaptability need not be directed toward destructive ends. We never wanted war, said Alina. We wanted partnership, exchange, growth. The terms of peace were surprising. Rather than isolation, the consortium proposed limited integration, with humanity serving as consultants on adaptation and innovation. Earth would gain access to some consortium technology, while the consortium would study human resilience. Your species thrives on challenge, Thorl observed as they finalized the agreement. We nearly made the mistake of providing you with the ultimate challenge, a war against the galaxy. Elena smiled. The fascinating thing about humans is that we don't need enemies to challenge us. We're perfectly capable of challenging ourselves. It's how we grow. As she looked out from the observation deck at Earth shining blue and white below, Elena reflected on humanity's strange first contact with galactic civilization. The consortium had declared war because they feared human unpredictability and adaptability. In the end, those same qualities had brought peace, not because humans had won, but because they had refused to fight on expected terms, changing the game until war itself no longer made sense. The galaxy had declared war on humans, and humans had shrugged, and then shown the galaxy a better way.